Hello, everybody. Happy Halloween. This is Jay Beelzebub, your Luciferian, satanic, pagan, Illuminati host of Fractured Realities. Okay, just kidding. But since it's Halloween and it's time to celebrate, I want to set the record straight on a few things about the holidays and about paganism and Luciferianism and Satanism and Illuminati, the word that everybody likes to throw out, and very few people have actual knowledge of what it means. Okay, see, the entire reason that I did this video, besides the fact that it's Samhain, which for you who are not in the know, Samhain is the proper pronunciation, the Gaelic, Irish Gaelic pronunciation of the word Samhain, which is the original derivative of Halloween. Now, Halloween was a festival for the end of like basically the Celtic New Year. Um, People would celebrate nature and their ancestors in order to bring better crops and better yield for the next year to come. It was not a holiday where people invoked demons. It was not a holiday where people sacrificed children. It was not a holiday where people burned innocent people alive in a wicker man. Okay. These misconceptions came from Christian and or Roman scholars who wrote stories about their enemies. The pagan, your Indo-European pagans were their enemies at the time. So they dramatically overplayed the evils that were presented. Basically, like I said, it was a year end ritual, basically celebrating the new year. People got the notion of representing demons because people would call and honor their ancestors, their dead ancestors. There's nothing to do with Gateway for that. It was not to summon demons because demons are an Abrahamic construct from the Middle East. Demons and demonology are not traditionally spoken for in Celtic or Nordic or Germanic paganism. They are not something that exists. And this is something that people mix up all the time. And lately, if you've been paying attention to media, you have things like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. You have the movie Midsummer. I've seen several memes. One that said Halloween or Samhain was the holiday where the druids went around and knocked on every door, and they were either given money or they were given children to sacrifice. False, false, and false. This did not happen. Like I said, once again, Abrahamic Christian propaganda. Okay, and I'm not trying to insult Christians here. If that's your thing and you want to worship a Middle Eastern god, that's fine. See, here's the thing that people don't understand about pagans and paganism. European pagans venerate their gods. Their gods are extensions of them, as in, okay, let's go with Nordic paganism, for example. Thor would be the strength that lies within yourself. Freya would be um, the fertility and the love and the feminine strength. Odin would be the wisdom. Loki would be the mischievousness. See, they're all parts of the human condition, and therefore they did not worship these gods or fall on their knees or sacrifice people to them. Those things happened, but not necessarily in European paganism, especially Celtic. Um, Now, there were times when people were sacrificed. Those people who were sacrificed were either criminals. And when I say criminals, I'm not talking about somebody who stole a loaf of bread. I'm talking about pedophiles. I'm talking about murderers. I'm talking about rapists. The drudges of society were the ones who were burned or were killed for that. Or if the crops had been a very bad yield and there was a great worry amongst the tribes that starvation was going to be an issue, there were times when the druids or the chieftains themselves would volunteer to be sacrificed on behalf of the tribe. They didn't pick out the virgins. It was people who voluntarily said, okay, go ahead and take me so that the rest of the tribe can survive. That's the true essence of Halloween, venerating autumn, venerating the ancestors, and venerating the crops, trying to get the crops to grow. It's more children of the corn than midsummer. Okay, but like I said, people have continued on and on to lump all paganism, witchcraft, Wiccan, Luciferianism, and all that together. You know who sacrifices or tortures children in order to gain power? Those would be those of Kabbalistic magic or those who follow the Gnostic traditions and the archons. And what is that? That is just yet another bastard offshoot of Judaism. That's where the demons come from Cabal, from the Cabal, from Jewish mysticism. King Solomon, Aleister Crowley, who was a Freemason. Freemasons also follow the Cabal. That's where that came from. The whole human sacrifice, human torture, in order to feed that tortured energy to a archonic being in order to gain power. That is a Kabbalistic tradition. That's something that people need to get straight. That is not Luciferian, Wiccan, pagan, witchcraft related. It is not. So I wanted to set the record straight on that. And I even read an article written by somebody who is supposedly a PhD. Obviously not a PhD in theology, but his claim was that the rise in witchcraft in the United States is due to an infection by the spirit of Jezebel. Now, why would a Middle Eastern spirit infect Americans who are practicing European traditions? Makes no sense. But once again, it's propaganda. See, because people who practice paganism are free. You're free of the constraints of the Abrahamic religions. If you want to love a person of the same sex or of another race, or if you want to live your life free in constraints of laws, do what thou wilt with the whole of the law, which means live your life by your own means. And see, that's another thing. A lot of people confuse about modern day Satanists. Okay, there's two different kinds of Satanists. There are people like Anton LaVey in the Church of Satan. Basically, what he was he was not a religious person. He was a anti-religious person. He didn't truly believe that he was doing the devil's bidding. He believed that he was going against the church and going against the establishment. That's what most Satanists are. They are Satan. The word Satan actually means adversary. So all being a Satanist means is that you're adversarial to the Abrahamic religions. Shaitan, the adversary, is where the word came from. That's all it means. It doesn't mean a person. It doesn't mean a being. Now, in the Christian or the Abrahamic religions, they have, of course, taken old pagan gods and turned them all into one evil Beelzebub, Asmodeus, um, Bathor. You can go on and on with them, but they're all separate entities, some Babylonian, some European, but none of them were the devil. Now, the Bible, or actually the Torah, if you want to be more specific, and some things talk about an angel named Samuel, who was basically God's lawyer. Means basically he stood apart from the other angels. He judged both the angels and mankind for God. Not God's voice. That was the Metatron. He's a different angel. But Samuel, that later on, he told somebody, I am the enlightened one, which is where they get Lucifer from, even though Lucifer technically was a Greek god, the brother of Diana. Lucifer means the illuminated one, or those who are illuminated. Now let's get to Luciferianism. Let me explain this the best that I can for people. Now, once again, you have, well, I'm going to even put this in the Luciferians, which are not Satanists, something different, into three categories. Number one, you have those who are of Gnostic traditions. Gnosticism is sort of a Kabbalism, but they believe that Lucifer, or the one that they call the devil in the Bible, is the true God of the earth, and that God or Yahweh is the demiurge. No, they don't, as far as I know, they don't go around sacrificing people to him. They believe that Lucifer is actually the good guy. He is the knowledge. He's the one who wants to help people do that. That's one type. Then once again, there's the other type who are literal first rabbinical Abrahamic types who believe that he's the devil and probably would sacrifice somebody just for the kicks and for the hell of it, because they are nothing but twisted Christians, is what they are. Then there's the third part. You got all these young kids who run around with the supposed Luciferian symbol and all this, and they claim that they're Luciferian. What they are is basically a bunch of cosplayers. They don't understand anything about the Cabal, the Gnostic text, or Abrahamic religions. They don't get it. They want to do it to be cool and to be provocative. And if that helps them or gives them a gateway or whatever, I'm not putting them down either. Bless them. I got plenty of friends who are into that. So that's what Luciferians are. Okay. So let's talk about pagans. Like I said, I've described pagans. That is the old path pagan. Then you have these new age pagans, or people who practice witchcraft. Basically, people who work with the elements being earth, wind, fire, water, spirit, man, sex, chaos, those type of things. They use those energies to help themselves. Then you also have this kind of new agey Wiccan type who are herbalists. They're really into the crystals. They're really into the healing. They have a little bit of the Far Eastern beliefs thrown in with them, but a lot of them still revert back to Abrahamic religions and say that they believe in God or the Almighty. He's not the same God from the Bible, but he's the God of everybody and created the universe, the ultimate creator, and love and light and all of that. That's their belief. It's sort of a, basically, in my opinion, what it is it is Abrahamic religions leaking into the occult societies. Is my opinion of what that is. I'm not putting it down. Like I said, everybody has their choice. If that's what you want, if you don't feel comfortable enough to step over the fence and say, I'm not a fan of the Abrahamic religions, I want nothing to do with this control system, but you want to dabble with magic and play witchy poo and dress up, then Wiccan or modern day paganism, neo paganism is for you. Okay, so that's that. That's the difference between Wiccans, witches, modern day pagans, Satanists, Luciferians. So let's separate all these. But like I said, lately, the propaganda has grown deep. People do not want people to wake up and to become spiritual. Every time this happens, there's a big war, and people get fed into the meat grinder. World War I, World War II. The Renaissance period. The Renaissance period was the Renaissance of paganism, paganist literature, architecture, and such. And then all of a sudden, what happened? The French Revolution. Multiple people died, and everything was restored to Abrahamism. So that's where I am with that. And then the one thing that absolutely aggravates me, and I have to address it, and this is going to make a lot of people mad, a lot of my friends in the truther community, but the whole Illuminati, Luciferian, sex, pedophile rings. First of all, there was one Illuminati, only one, and that was in Bavaria. They were artists, scientists. It did not have a religious overtone. And they stood against the Catholic Church, who was the establishment at the time. That was the Illuminati. The Illuminati is not the New World Order. The Illuminati is not some secret organization. The pyramid represents Gnostic knowledge or the illuminated path. But this is not a group that is controlling the world. If you want to know the truth of the matter is that the Kabbalists are the ones who run the pedophile rings. They are the ones who control the movies that you watch. They are the ones who control the history that you read. And no, it's not all Jewish people, but there are a group, a certain small sect, one of the 13 tribes, who is involved in all that. They are the controllers of the world. And until you realize that and realize who your true enemy is, your true enemy is not Mary Starfire who sells crystals at the corner shop. It's not the kid who's walking around with the Luciferian shirt. It's not the guy in the Hellhammer band who's singing about Satanism. Those aren't your enemies. Those aren't the people who are affecting your lives. The people who are affecting your lives are bankers, people who control your monetary system, the people who control these orphanages and state institutions that children disappear from, the people who control Hollywood where children are molested, those are your enemies. And until you are brave enough to step forward and say it without worrying about being called ignorant, without worrying about being called wrong, without being worried about being called Illuminati yourself or being called Satanists or anti-Jew or Nazi or whatever people want to call you, until you have the freedom of your spirit enough to realize that you are never going to be able to conquer the enemies of this world. That's why I do believe that the neo-pagan Renaissance and the Wiccan Renaissance and the Renaissance of Luciferianism and Satanism is a good thing for the world because it breaks us out of those Abrahamic control systems. Once you break out of those Abrahamic control systems, it's easier to see that your true enemies lie within. Now, with all that said and done, it's getting dark here, so I'm getting ready to pass out some candy. Um, talk to my lady friend and keep her company for the night. Like I said, stop believing all the nonsense. Don't believe every meme that you read about Halloween. Don't spread that nonsense. Just like the Satanic Panic back in the 1960s and 70s with Rosemary's Baby and all these movies, The Exorcist. It was all a way for the powers that be who control the movie industry, control the history books, control the monetary system, and control the politicians, both Republican and Democrats across the board, to clamp down on the people who are becoming free, to clamp down on your freedom by creating this new enemy, this satanic evil cult that runs the world. Not true. But is there an evil cult who tortures children, who rapes children, who feeds archons, who feeds hundreds and thousands and millions of fucking young men into a fucking meat grinder and wars all over the world? Yes, there absolutely is. That is who you want to call the New World Order, and they are Kabbalists. So get that straight. It's not the witches, the Wiccans, the Satanists, the Luciferians you got to worry about. It's the rich fucking bankers who are feeding your kids to the beast. Okay, sorry about that, but had to get that point across to you because people don't seem to realize what's going on. See through the propaganda. Wake yourself. Find out what your ancestral heritage is. Find out who you really are and find what helps and what resonates with you and your spirit. And that's how you break the chains. That's true freedom. Doesn't have anything to do with money. Doesn't have anything to do with Middle Eastern sky wizards. It has to do with freedom of your soul. You got to wake yourself up, people. I love you all. Happy Samhain. Live yourself and don't believe the hype. Thank you once again. Happy Halloween, everybody.